In the air to right field. Way back there. Fair, foul, and
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of Season 2 of Fair or Foul here on WTBU Sports. I'm Daniel Maltz.
I'm Jacob Lintner.
I'm Ben Silver.
And we are so thrilled to be back. I'm sure we all had lovely summers, but so excited to be back here in the College of Communication of Boston University, ready to get back into the groove of things with baseball. So, guys, let's dive right into it. I mean, it's September. We've got about 2-3 weeks to go before the regular season ends, and these wild card races are something else.
Yeah, no, I think one of the most interesting things is the difference between the AL and the NL right now. I mean, I know that there are a few races still left to find a winner in the AL, but I mean, the NL is wide open. The AL's got, 6 teams competing. NL still has almost 9 or 10, I want to say.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just for the wild card, you've got 5 teams that are within 5 games of each other.
Yeah, plus the 2 winners. I mean, there's the Diamondbacks, the Brewers, the Phillies. I mean, I guess you could say the Mets are theoretically still in it. I wouldn't say they were.
Can't.
No, but I mean, they still.
The Mets are so bad, man.
Okay, no, I agree. I'm a Phillies fan. You know that. The Mets stink on ice, but I mean, theoretically, they are still in it.
They just bother me because of what they did to their fans. I mean, there was a stretch of the season where they still had the best record in baseball after the All-Star break up until a certain point. And then they had a huge homestand where they were going to play Cleveland, Chicago, and Atlanta. And that was going to be a real test for them to see how they would do. And they got all their fans excited by sweeping Cleveland. They swept Cleveland at Citi Field and then promptly lost 5 out of 6 to the Cubs and Braves and completely shot themselves in the foot.
I don't think anyone's really all that surprised, though, that the Mets suck again.
I am. They were absolute. I mean, listen, the Mets and Yankees, the one thing that those two teams really do have in common this year is that they picked players up off the scrap heap and are producing beyond what you could have ever imagined. I mean, for the Mets, it's really the big name that comes to my mind is J.D. Davis. I mean, he was a failed prospect with the Astros. He was an infielder who was never going to get a starting spot on Houston because they've just got the most stacked infield in baseball. He comes to the Mets, and he's raking for them. And, everybody knew Pete Alonso, who was a big power hitter, but nobody could have ever expected that he'd break the National League rookie record for home runs. McNeil is great. Conforto's been great. Wilson Ramos has quietly like a 26, 27 game hitting streak that nobody cares about and nobody's noticing.
I think the hitting streak ended.
When did it? No, didn't he get 4 hits yesterday?
Yeah, but I think it ended 2 days ago.
Oh, all right. Well, he had a nice long hitting streak, but I mean, then the Mets just punched their fans in the gut with I don't know how they do it. Well, the team shouldn't be this mediocre. Like the Mets on paper shouldn't be this average.
Their issue is that they really can hit. I mean, they do have the big power hitters. They got Pete Alonso. They got Jeff McNeil, one of the best 1-2 punches in baseball, bar none. But then you have J.D. Davis, Michael Conforto, and you have Wilson Ramos. I mean, that's a good top 5. But then you have Ahmed Rosario, Juan Lagares, Todd Frazier rounding out the lineup. And of course, Robinson Cano is Robinson Cano, but he sucks this year.
Listen, I mean, no lineup needs to be 9 guys deep. I mean, those five guys. You look at how this team looked at the beginning of the season. Those 5 guys with DeGrom, Syndergaard, and Wheeler, and Edwin Diaz and Seth Lugo all together on the same team. This team should not be this bad. Obviously, nobody could have known that Edwin Diaz was going to go through Sonny Gray syndrome, where you just can't pitch on a New York ball team. But I don't know. We don't need to harp on the Mets that much. I mean, they kind of make
to harp on the Mets that much.
They kind of make fun of themselves by what they've done.
But I don't know, the Mets, I mean, to Ben, your point, they can still hit. They got a plus 17 run differential. I mean, the Brewers, who are 2 games ahead of them in the standings right now, have a minus 33 differential.
Do they really? Wow, I should know that.
Yeah.
The Mets, of anyone, I'm the big Pythagorean guy, but
yeah, the Mets aren't a bad team. They've got some good pieces. They've got some real good quality hitters. The problem is just what they've been doing against good teams. I mean, they've been beaten up on the Marlins, whoever else in that, in the NL
the
who
Marlins,
suck.
the
Not the
Rockies.
Phillies. Not the Phillies for once.
Not
we
the Phillies.
we won the season series, may I say, convincingly for the first time since 2011, 2012 maybe. I don't know, one of those 2
The
years.
last time you guys were good.
Yeah, well, I mean 2012 we weren't good, but we may have won that year. I can't really remember.
But it's what the Mets been doing against good teams, though. Just what you're saying, Melty. They're 14 games below 500 against teams that are above 500 on the season.
That's horrible.
So those series against the Cubs and the Nationals, who they're trailing in the wild card by 4 and 7 games, that just really shows their true colors.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be a playoff contending team if you can't beat teams that are over 500. I mean, you look across the American League and the National League. The Houston Astros are 9 games over against above 500 teams. The Yankees are 12 games over 500. The Dodgers are 12. The Braves are 12. There's a pattern there. The biggest heavyweights in baseball this year are all teams that have done their due diligence against winning ball clubs. And the Mets are the exact opposite. And, that explains a whole lot, doesn't it?
And
That's just sad.
Yeah, I think, I was harping on their lineup, but the more I look at it, I think their main issue is their bullpen.
Yeah.
Mainly, well, I mean, not just their bullpen, but especially Edwin Diaz and Yuris Familia. And I think Yuris Familia, even bigger of an issue than Edwin Diaz. I mean, everyone expected Edwin Diaz to, be their star. They traded their number 1 prospect for Robinson Cano and Edwin Diaz, both of whom have flopped incredibly. Just
Diaz is going to get traded again this offseason.
it's like the Hindenburg, but Yuris Familia I think is the biggest issue there. Just with his, I mean, he's coming off what?
How is that like the Hindenburg? I love the reference, but that's just straight out of left
such
field.
a disaster. I mean, you trade your number one prospect for Robinson Cano and Edwin Diaz. I mean, I know that even if they were both still good, it might be a bit of an overpay. But for the disaster of a season that both of them are having right now, I mean, that is a colossal mess. And Yuris Familia, I mean, I know he hasn't been stellar over the past 2 or 3 years before this season, but I mean, even still, last year at 3.13 ERA, I mean, he struck out 10.4 per 9 in the bullpen, and this year's at 6.18. This guy's 3 years removed from a 50 save season. Not that saves matter, but still, you can't. You just can't be good with a guy like that on your team, taking up big innings.
Listen, I mean, the Mets' their whole season has been defined by their bullpen struggles. Their starting rotation's a different issue, but I mean, Jacob deGrom is still pitching at an ungodly level. But Syndergaard, Wheeler, Matz, they've all had some good. They've all had plenty of good
as well.
Stroman's ERA is 5 with the Mets. You know what? I can tell you exactly why the Mets made this trade. They traded for Marcus Stroman so the Yankees couldn't get him.
And also because they gave up, nothing. I mean, they gave up pennies.
Yeah. Do you guys remember when this happened and Marcus Stroman was brought into the office for Toronto and they told him he was going to New York and his excitement level went through the roof and then they said it's the Mets? Meow. I mean,
Hindenburg.
Yeah, he hasn't been good with the Mets, but that's not the issue. The issue is just that team is all over the place in so many bad ways. But let's stay in the NL East. Ben, what do you got to say about your Phillies?
Well, I actually had a segue there because Marcus Stroman obviously was the guy they picked up to replace the traded Jason Vargas. I mean, obviously he's not the Vargas replacement, but they got Stroman and they had an extra pitcher, so give Vargas away for a double-A scrub catcher.
Yeah, and Vargas is playing like a double-A scrub pitcher.
Well, no, Vargas has actually been pretty good, surprisingly.
Look at his numbers, my dude. That's not true.
Well, he's been better than Stroman, and for the Phillies, the level that they expected of him, I would say he's been pretty good. He's not been great.
An
I'm not saying he's
ERA
been,
of 4.93.
but
averaging
it's still better than Stroman. It is still better than Marcus Stroman. I'm not going to say the Phillies are good because they're not.
Wow.
But
wait,
they're better than the Mets.
Stop the presses. I love this honesty.
Oh, yeah, no, the Phillies are not. Any Phillies fan, especially one who has watched every single damn game this year, is not going to tell you that the Phillies are a good. They're not a good team. They're They're not.
Yeah, they still got an 8% chance to make the postseason. I don't think we got.
You guys are not.
I actually think they have better than 8% chance, but I know that's what Fangraphs or Baseball Reference or whatever is
538.
getting them.
Listen, you guys are not out, but I mean,
We're 2 games out. I mean, that's
the one good
it's
thing.
reasonable.
The one good thing for you guys is that if you're in the wild card situation where you're gonna have to face somebody in a 1-game playoff, if Aaron Nola takes the mound, you can win that game.
and the issue is that Aaron Nola is currently lined up to pitch game 162. So if he does do that, who are we gonna have pitch the wild card game? Is it gonna be Drew Smiley?
Well,
Is it gonna be Jason Vargas? Zach Eflin?
I can't imagine that if the only reason Aaron Nola is going to pitch game 162 is if it's if he has to.
Well,
if the
I mean,
Phillies, if the Phillies
are
don't if they don't make the play, if that game decides whether or not they make the playoffs, he pitches. If it's an irrelevant game,
Well, obviously
he
he
doesn't
won't pitch. Yeah. I mean, actually, I think if the Phillies are out of it at that point, he'll pitch. If the Phillies are in it at that point, he'll pitch. But unless he won't pitch that game, only if they've already clinched the wild card at that point. But
I don't think.
No,
it's gonna
listen.
happen.
yeah, I agree. I don't think it will happen either. I don't think they're going to clinch. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. But it's plausible. 2 games out is 2 games out. But we are facing the Braves, then the Red Sox, then the Indians, then 5 games against the Nationals, and we finished off with 3 games against the Marlins. So that's a
Yeah.
bit of a gauntlet there.
By the time you get to the Marlins, you'll be happy.
Yeah, but I want the major issue with the Phillies. I mean, on paper, it's the starting rotation because it's not good. But in reality, it's the bullpen because the Phillies came into the season with their bullpen being Hector Neris, Jose Alvarez, Juan Nicasio, who is really bad, Adam Morgan, Seranthony Dominguez, Pat Neshek, Tommy Hunter, and David Robertson, and Victor Arano as well. All of them are injured except for Alvarez and Neris, both of whom are actually having pretty good seasons. Neris with a 2.95 ERA. Hector Neris, 2.95 ERA. What happened there? I mean, thank God he's not tipping his pitches anymore like he was last year, but he's actually been pretty damn good, I might say. But the issue is they have no one to replace them. Everyone they've called up to replace has just they've floundered. You know, you have Ranger Suarez, who's the one guy who's been competent, but then you have like Nick Pivetta, who's been so bad that he's been demoted to AAA multiple times. Cole Irvin has a 7.16 ERA. Edgar Garcia 6.68. There are 3 guys that they sort of picked up off the scrap heap, traded for international cash. Mike Morin, Jared Hughes, Blake Parker all have ERAs above 5. I mean, it's just they have no one, and their bullpen is just a mess. I mean, they had Nick Vincent out in back-to-back days to give up a walk-off home run and then a walk-off walk. I mean, that is depressing.
That's the Phillies.
Yeah.
Philadelphia is just they are just a hot mess. Other than really Aaron Nola and JT Realmuto, nobody else on this team has been incredibly impressive.
Yeah, I think the big problem with the Phillies and the postseason isn't anything that the Phillies have done. I mean, of course, you know, as you said, Ben, they're just not a good team.
Mhm.
But I think it's the teams ahead of them. I mean, the Nationals, for all intents and purposes, have that first wild card spot locked up.
Well,
They're
I mean,
3 games up on the Cubs. But, I mean, as far as teams going in opposite directions, the Diamondbacks have surged to within a game and a half of the Cubs for the
They're
second
not
wild
good.
card.
They're not good.
They may
Doesn't
not
matter.
be.
They're not good. They're not going to. Can you do it? They're going to fall out of it. Give it a week, and I guarantee they will be.
Do you know what their run differential is?
It's good. I know
It's
that.
plus 82. It's
They're
better-
not good.
It's no. Hold on. Just hold on a second. The Diamondbacks' run differential is better than the Cubs, better than the Brewers, better than the Phillies, better than the Mets, and right up there with the St. Louis Cardinals, and not too far behind the Atlanta Braves. The Braves' run differential is only 15 runs higher. The Diamondbacks are a good team.
No, they're not. They have the same problem as the Phillies. They can't pitch.
They don't need to. They're so good at hitting.
It doesn't matter. You can't have a team that can't pitch. Like it's not going to happen. I don't think. I mean, I give them the exact same odds that I give the Phillies to make the postseason right now. You know, they've got a great lineup that I would actually consider on par with the Phillies lineup. They've got their stars. They've got their sluggers. I mean, but they're not. They're just not a good team. Who are you going to have?
Then
started
how'd they get where they are?
How are they?
They're-
ahead
how
of
are they-
Phillies in the standings?
How are they 70? How are they 75
Okay,
and 68? And mind you, they're in the same division as the Dodgers. So I'm not saying.
They're an 85-86 win team.
And that's going to be
Perfectly the
enough
sa-
to win this wild. That could be enough to win
Perfectly
this
the
wild
same
card.
thing as the Phillies, though. I don't see it happening. I don't see the Diamondbacks finishing. I don't know.
Listen, they are surging at the right time, man. I mean, they walked into they're 11-1 or 11-2 in their in their last 12 or 13 games. I mean,
Oh,
if
wow.
there's ever a time to get white hot, it's now, and they're doing it.
You know what? You may have a point with the Diamondbacks just because I've seen their upcoming schedule. They're playing the Mets, the Marlins, the Padres, the Cardinals, who are their one hard team, and then the Padres again. They might have a shot at it. Now that I've seen the schedule.
They absolutely do have a shot against it. And you look at the Diamondbacks' record against teams above 500, it's not great. They're 2 games under 500, and the best that's going to get is 1 game over if they somehow find a way to sweep the Cardinals. But they are a good team. They can hit more than people give them credit for, and they have got a lot of serviceable pitching in there. And you know what? Am I saying they're going to make it to the World Series and win it? Of course not. If they make it to the wild card, they're going to be the lowest seed in the National League. But they can make it.
And
Oh,
then
yeah.
lose to the Nationals in the
Yeah,
first
and then
round.
get
because,
shut up by Max
Or the
Scherzer.
Yeah,
Dodgers.
exactly. Like who are you going to have go up? They're not going to beat the Nationals. I'm sorry, they're
No,
just
they
not,
probably
they're
won't.
not.
They probably
Oh,
won't.
no.
But they can. But my point is that they can make it.
Oh, my point is certainly, and looking at the Cubs schedule on the other side of that, the Cubs, again, don't have a super tough time, but 4 games at the Padres, then they go home, 3 against the Pirates, 3 against the Reds, 4 against the Cardinals, then finish the season on the road, 3 at Pittsburgh, 3 at St. Louis. That series, the last 3 games against the Cardinals-Cubs series, has been billed all season long as deciding the NL Central. Yeah, I think the Cardinals will have it clinched by then. And that last series with St. Louis could easily end up deciding the wild card in that case. Because if the Cubs and Cardinals, even if the Cubs end up taking 2 or 3, if the Diamondbacks finish the season as hot as they are, and with, 8 games against the Padres, that looks pretty good for Arizona.
I
Yeah.
think it also looks good for Philly. And they're and the Brewers, to be fair, as well. Because, I think people are counting – the Diamondbacks have played 1 more game than the Cubs, Brewers, and Phillies. So, any of those teams win 1 more game and they're tied with the Diamondbacks. But I don't know. I don't think you can count the Diamondbacks on a higher level than the Brewers, the Phillies. I think all 3 of those teams kind of suck. I think the Cubs kind of suck as well, especially now that they don't have Javi Baez.
Oh my God. These teams don't suck.
They don't okay, fine. They don't suck, but they're not playoff. None of these teams are playoff teams.
Oh my God.
Well,
what are
at
you
least
saying?
one of them has to
Well,
be.
They're not
exactly.
world- they're not world-
one of them has to be, but in any year other than 2019, these teams are not playoff teams. They're not playoff caliber teams.
Oh, you're okay.
I don't know what-
So, I disagree.
Let's go, Maltzy.
I listen. I don't think the Cubs are going to. The Cubs are not quite the same team that they were 2 or 3 years ago. But this team still has a lot of quality players on it that, when you put them together, are enough to get this team into the playoffs, making them a playoff team. I love Wilson Contreras and Anthony Rizzo. Chris Bryant is still a very solid player. Kyle Schwarber bombs. And listen,
God.
Oh, yeah.
Jose Quintana, Yu Darvish, John Lester, Kyle Hendricks, Cole Hamels. Those are 5 serviceable guys for your rotation.
Oh, yeah.
Are any of them? Listen, none of them are the aces that I would want pitching a 1-game playoff for me, but they are all good pitchers. And to be honest, with the way he was looking when he was pitching for them, I think it's a good thing that Craig Kimbrell's going to miss the rest of the season. The Cubs have the same problem as the Mets. They can hit well. They can hit well enough. They've got good enough starting pitching. But they've got no bullpen. I mean,
they've got more bullpen pieces than any other teams. They have 3, whereas the Phillies have 1, maybe 2. And how many of the Mets have 2, 3? Diamondbacks have, I think, 1 in Kyle Young.
Well, look, this is what puts the St. Louis Cardinals so far ahead of the Cubs. I think
They have a complete team. They have a real lineup.
Listen, no,
Not
I
a
would
real
I
lineup,
would
they have a
I
real
would put
team.
Chicago's lineup above St. Louis's.
Ooh.
I would put Chicago's lineup above St. Louis's, but the Cardinals pitching staff is 1,001 miles better.
Oh, yeah.
And I think you guys have been able to keep pace with the Cubs offensively for the most part, But on the pitching end of it, you guys are just so much better. I mean, you have just in the bullpen, Carlos Martinez seems to have found a temporary home in the bullpen. John Brebbia has had a good year. Giovanni Gallegos, the nobody that the Yankees traded to you guys for Luke Voigt. So far, this trade is turning out to benefit both sides.
Oh, yeah.
Because Gallegos has been your best reliever this year. You wouldn't think it, but you look at the numbers, he's been your best reliever. John Gant has been fine. You still have Andrew Miller, who I still trust. If you really need a clutch out, I trust Andrew Miller. And then you look at their rotation. I mean, Miles Michaelis is fine. Adam Wainwright is fine. I love Dakota
I can't
Hudson.
believe Wainwright is still pitching.
I absolutely love Dakota Hudson and Jack Flaherty. I'm sure you love them
Oh,
way
yeah.
more
Jack
because you.
Flaherty is incredible.
Jack Flaherty's .76 ERA since the All-Star break in 11 starts.
He's also 23 years old
He's
as well.
23 years
He's
old.
young.
It's incredible.
He's got an incredible career ahead of him.
Yeah, and
Hope
it's
so.
it's every single start that Flaherty has. Yachty gets interviewed after the game. Jim Hayes walks up to him, puts the mic in his face, and says, "So what do you think about Jack Flaherty?" And every single time Yachty says, "Well, it's just a matter of time before he finishes off this no-hitter. He's gonna throw one. It's just a matter of when, not if."
Yeah.
But the Cardinals pitching staff on the whole, second in the NL in average against, second in saves, second in ERA. They've got second in ERA. I think they're 12th or 13th in strikeouts, which doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I mean, listen,
they pitch to contact.
strikeouts are pretty, but you don't need them.
Yeah, and especially when you've got the fewest errors in baseball in that defense behind you.
Really?
You don't need to strike out a bunch of people. This is the Cardinals team. Defensively was last in fielding percentage in 2018.
I remember that.
First in 2019. First time if
That's
they can
impressive.
finish off that turnaround that will ever been done.
I
That's
think the
impressive in
most
baseball.
important stat for the Cardinals right now is that their pitching staff is first in the NL in, not allowing home runs.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, especially in the juice ball year, keeping the ball. I mean, I think what they're doing really well is they're keeping the ball down. They're making sure that they're neutralizing the whole launch angle epidemic. It's. I think it's been phenomenal for their pitching staff. Who's their pitching coach?
It's Mike Maddox.
Mike Maddox. Yes, yeah, that's someone who I've heard of. So I
yeah.
assume.
Boy, he's bounced
automatically
around.
they're
Didn't
good.
he used to be the Phillies pitching coach?
Was
And
he?
He was. I know
I
he
don't
was.
think so.
He
I
spent
know he
time
was.
on a lot of places.
I know he was on. He's been on Philly. He's been on Texas. I thought he was also with Atlanta, or
Yeah,
that might
no.
be just Greg Maddox. They're
No,
not related.
He was a player. He was a rookie on the Phillies for and then
Oh, he
was there
played for the
2
Phillies.
yeah.
Okay, I knew he had something to do with them.
Yeah, it's the Cardinals. It's the complete team. I disagree with what you said, Malty, about the Cubs lineup being on par, better than the Cardinals. I think once you get into a postseason set, once you get into a series with the Cardinals, the bats are going to have to come alive. Dexter Fowler's had himself a great comeback season. Colton Wong is leading the team in batting average since the All-Star break. He's batting .340 since the break in the middle of the season. And then you've got just too many good hitters between Paul Goldschmidt, Matt Carpenter, Marcelo Zuna, and Paul DeYoung even, who's the first Cardinals shortstop to ever hit 20-plus homers in back-to-back seasons.
Ever?
Ever.
Wow.
Well, I mean-
coming from the Cardinals,
Well, I
that's
mean,
really impressive.
No, you look at those shortstops: Red Shane
I
Deans,
was gonna
Ozzie
say-
Smith. I mean, those
Yeah,
two
I
guys are
guess.
known for their speed and their fielding.
And we haven't, the best power-hitting shortstop we ever had was probably,
Johnny
I was
Peralta.
going to say Johnny Peralta, maybe.
Jahani.
That's probably it. Maybe, not, and then you have David Eckstein, who's now on the Pirates, and with his brother. They're both staffing the Pirates there, but
Aw.
David Eckstein, who was the 2006 World Series MVP, I think his career high was 13 or 14 homers in a season.
Yeah, I also want to
Mind
say
you, he was like Altuve big, so he wasn't hitting a lot of home
Oh,
runs.
no.
Um,
But the Cardinals just don't have a whole lot of power from the shortstop historically.
Yeah, you said Dexter Fowler comeback season, and yes, he has come back from last season, but I don't think I'd call it a comeback season when his OPS plus is still below 100.
I mean, it's all relative with Dex. He's been, as with most of the Cardinals hitters, he's been great since the All-Star break.
Mhm.
And even if great for him isn't necessarily, great for everybody else, as long as he is being a consistent bat, I think most importantly is the Cardinals are just getting good quality production at the right time.
He's actually been worse since he actually had a better first half than second half. Although he did have a really good August and July. It might just be because the 6 games he's had in September, he's batted 154.
Yeah, no, he's had a little bit of a
7
skid
games,
lately.
sorry.
Yeah, everybody's allowed to have one. And by the way, David Eckstein's career high was 8.
8?
Really?
Yeah, he's got 39 home runs.
Maybe it was just
for
because
his, for his
he was
career.
a Cardinal, and I assumed that he's just always good.
Listen,
no.
he was 5'6", 170, and I think Altuve's the only guy that size to hit for the kind of power that he's hitting for.
Oh, yeah.
Like, whatever. David Eckstein was never known for being a big-time power hitter, but he's a World Series MVP. He's a multiple-time World Series winner, 06 MVP. He's a member of the Tribe, so I love
Oh,
it.
he
I
is,
love it.
really? By the way, I just want to specify
very.
by tribe, multi means that he's Jewish.
Yes, he's
I
a
didn't-
Jewish ball player.
He's not a member of the Indians.
I was going
No.
to say.
No, he is one of the few great Jewish baseball players, and he wasn't even that amazing. So that just tells you how good a lot of the Jewish
World
baseball
Series
players have
MVP is
been.
not too bad.
No, I mean, listen, he won 2 World Series. He won 2 World Series with 2 different teams in 5 years. I mean, good
Call
for
it
him.
pretty good.
I mean, yeah, that's just about the whole rigmarole with the National League wild card race. I mean, we haven't even talked about the Milwaukee Brewers, and I don't want to because this team, more than the Mets, the Phillies, the Diamondbacks, or the Cubs, this team is doomed to crumble. I mean,
Talk about teams that don't have pitching. The Brewers do not have pitching.
no, the Brewers have the least quality pitching staff out of any team in this wild card race. They've got some solid pieces in the bullpen. I'll give them that. But they have no semblance of a starting rotation. Everybody that's been good for them this year is hurt or gone or is
Zach Davies
no longer
isn't
good.
bad, but his FIP is 4.78, so he's due for regression. And the whole team is due for regression. Their Pythagorean has them 6 games below 500.
Yeah, because they have a negative 33 run differential. When you give up that many more runs than you score, things are not going to go well. And your offense can only carry you so far. I mean, Grandal's been good, Thames is good, Moustakas is good, Yelich is apparently a perennial MVP.
He's going to be the
Possibly
MVP
the
again.
MVP
No,
again,
he is going to be the MVP again.
No, he's not.
His OPS is 1.103.
Great.
How is he not? He's going to be the MVP.
No, he's not.
He has 44 home runs.
Cody Bellinger's going to be in the MVP.
Bryce Harper has a better OPS in the second half than Cody Bellinger.
Wonderful.
I guarantee you, Cody Bellinger will not. That's
Your
that's
argument
asinine.
is not convincing to me right now.
What's that?
Bellinger's hitting over 300. He's tied with Yelich in home runs. He's scored more runs.
Oh yeah, he scored the end all
He's
be
got a
all
great.
set.
He's got a great on base. His OPS is almost as good as Christian Yelich's, and he's a much better defender. He's winning the
I
MVP.
find that really surprising. The defense actually has slightly convinced me. He saved, according to Baseball Reference, he's saved 23 defensive runs this year. I want to check Fangraphs because that almost seems too absurd to be true.
No, he's just that good of an outfielder.
I mean,
They were wasting his defensive talents at first base.
Yeah, that's
moving
correct.
him
Because
to-
I assume
moving him to center field or right field, whichever one he plays, was the right
field,
move
I
for
believe.
him. But anyway, we'll tackle the National League awards in just a bit because I
Okay.
think it is such a deep race for some of the National League awards. We'll get to that.
I also just want to say
just a minute.
So Baseball Reference has Cody Bellinger at 23 run save. Fangraphs has him at 5 run saves. I'm going to split the difference and say it's somewhere in between. But
What's Christian Yelich's? I guarantee you it's negative.
Oh no, Christian Yelich is at 0 on Baseball Reference. But let's see Fangraphs.
Okay,
I
so
just
if he's
think,
at 0 on Baseball Reference, then he better be negative on Fangraphs.
well, I mean, they measure different things, so it's totally possible that he's positive there. But you can't tell. Like, you can't know. Let's see. It is you are right though. It's -4, but he has a higher WAR on Fangraphs than Bellinger, and on Baseball Reference, Bellinger has the higher WAR. Not that I'm saying
Whatever, right?
I hate WAR single season wise. It's you need a longer period of time.
Listen,
But-
listen. Again, we'll get to this in a little bit later on in the episode, but right now, the preview to when we're going to talk about this is right now those two guys. It's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, and it's going to be a tight race down to the end. We may even see something that's only happened once in the history of the game, and it happened 40 years ago. Stay tuned so you can find out what that is. But let's move on to the American League playoff race, where it's so much simpler because there's 3 teams in the race. 4 teams if you want to count the Minnesota Twins, but they're putting plenty of distance between themselves and the Indians. Right now it's the Rays. They've got the first wild card, and the A's have the second. I don't think there's anything really to decide. The Yankees are burying the Red Sox away from...
The Red Sox are done. It's kind of sad. The Red Sox are complete. A week ago, I would have said, they're kind of in it. 5 games back it's a lot, but the Phillies came back from 7 with 17 left to play in 07. I will say that, again, Phillies came back from 7 games back with 17 left to play against the Mets. I still think about that when I go to sleep at night, but 8 is too much. I don't. Again, they have to leapfrog the Indians. Red Sox are out.
No, forget just having to leapfrog the Indians. They're 6.5 games behind the Indians. It's not happening.
No.
But I mean, there's really, we've known this about the American League. It's always been the much more top-heavy league in baseball. There's 6 teams in the playoff race again. It's not the same 6 as last year, but it's only 6. I mean, really, truthfully, the only races left in the American League are who's going to host the wild card game, Tampa Bay or Oakland, which team that can't get fans in the ballpark will host and have more empty seats at a playoff game.
No, they'll both sell out their playoff games. They always have. They always have. Both the Rays and the A's have, I believe, sold out all of their playoff games for the last 15 years.
It's just a shame that it takes them making the playoffs to actually
It really does. But
get that many butts in the seats.
the major issue for the Rays, though, is that it is impossible to get to their stadium. All of the traffic has to go over one bridge.
Oh, it's disgusting.
And
It's
they
like
actually
2
have,
lanes.
they actually have mediocre TV numbers. They're better proportionally than their attendance numbers are. I mean, they're not really well supported, but they're not as poorly supported as their attendance would have you believe. And the Marlins are as poorly supported as their attendance would have you believe, which is strange because you expect Miami's a much better market than Tampa. But
but when
who
Bruce
knows?
Sherman and Derek Jeter come in and trade everything but the kitchen sink,
Everything and the kitchen sink. I mean, who do they have left now? Caleb Smith?
Starlin Castro.
Starlin Castro is great, great.
But yeah, I mean, other than hosting, who's going to host the wild card game? The only other thing to decide is home field.
Yeah,
and
I really
that's-
hope it goes to Tampa.
I meant between the Yankees and the Astros.
Oh, between the Yankees and the Astros.
And that one's
okay.
actually an interesting race.
That's
Because
Yeah, they're tied right now.
no, they're not.
They both have a 653.
But
percentage.
Houston won the season series
Oh yeah.
because
So
they played
Houston's-
7 games.
Is it not in interdivisional? I always get this confused.
No.
Is it interdivision? It's
That's
season
if the season series is tied, it goes to interdivision.
Gotcha. Okay.
But they played 7 games against each other, so right now it would be Houston, and that terrifies me.
But that's so much fun. It's really the only thing you can watch in the AL. But who's gonna have to play the Twins? Nobody wants
That's
to play the
true.
Twins right now.
No, the Twins are the best offensive team in the league. I mean, they will slug their way past anybody. Now they've got plenty of problems of their own. They've got just as shaky of a starting rotation as the Yankees do, and they just lost Michael Pineda to a 60-game suspension, and he was probably one of their 3 steadiest arms in that rotation, and he was having a great comeback season. He's now a repeat offender. He got caught blatantly using pine tar in back-to-back games against the same team back in 2014, and now he's really stepped over the line.
I mean, the Diamondbacks are basically, I just spoiled the thing, but the Twins are basically just the Diamondbacks on crack. It's.
Not really.
The Twins are so much better.
Yeah,
Well, exactly.
The Twins.
It's
Yeah.
the same formula of team, but done about 10 times better.
Well, yeah. I mean, listen. I might even disagree with that because the Twins, based on what you think about the Diamondbacks, the Twins have trustworthy starting pitchers. They have proven big league starters, and they have a couple
They don't
of
have
good
an
pieces
ace
now.
or anything. They have
Jose Barrios is a great pitcher.
has a 3.78 ERA and a FIP that's almost 4.
Boo hoo! I still trust him. He's a young guy with wicked good stuff.
He's
so
very
is
good.
Jake Odorizzi.
He's a very good pitcher, but he's not an ace, and that's what they need.
How many teams are walking into this postseason with an ace?
Well,
Yeah.
Obviously, Houston has an ace.
has
2 of
multiple
them,
aces,
yeah.
3
Okay.
aces actually.
They've got 3. You know what? Cool flex. They've got 3. I hate them for it.
Phillies have an ace.
who's not pitching
Yeah,
like
they're
one.
not going to go into the postseason.
And
though.
well, if you take out his first 3 starts, his ERA is below 3. But
Anyway,
besides the point,
the Dodgers and Astros have multiple aces, so they're doing just fine. The Cardinals, yeah, they've got an ace. They've got Flaherty. I'll give them that.
Dakota Hudson still
I love Dakota Hudson. He's so underrated
fantastic
on that
pitcher.
team.
Yeah,
The Braves, they don't have an ace. The Yankees,
no, the Braves have an ace.
who's their ace?
Soroka.
Fine.
Soroka's been pitching as much
He's
as
a- but he's a-
much as I hate to say it, he's been pitching really, really well.
But he's a rookie.
He's not an ace, but he is their ace.
But he's not an ace.
but
Yes.
he's not true.
So
Yeah.
so Atlanta doesn't have an ace. I would go so far as to say the Chicago Cubs don't have an ace. They've
No.
got 5 middle of the rotation starters. They don't have an ace.
I'd say Kyle Hendricks is a top rotation starter, but he's currently you can't be an ace and top out at 80 miles an hour.
No,
You just can't.
I mean,
In modern baseball, you can't do that.
in modern baseball you could when the ball's not juiced, but irrelevant. So Atlanta doesn't really have an ace. The Cubs don't have an ace. The Diamondbacks certainly don't have an ace. They traded theirs to Houston. And the A's don't really have an ace. You don't really recognize anybody on that team.
no.
Tampa Bay does have. Tampa Bay's got Charlie Morton, so
And
I guess
I think Glasnow's coming back soon as well.
he is back.
Oh, he is. He's already back.
Yeah,
Nice.
but yeah, my point is that somewhere around half the teams that are going to be in the playoffs this season are going to be entering the playoffs without an ace. And I said this earlier, but you look at the Yankees. The Yankees are 94-50. They are 94-50. They've made it to 44 games over 500. The AL East has been practically theirs for over a month, and they have such a questionable starting rotation. Like
it's-
it is the only thing. If the Yankees had even one starting pitcher who I could trust game in and game out going into the playoffs, I would say they can win the World Series. They've got a better bullpen than Houston. Those two lineups can go at each other for days. But the Yankees do not, by any stretch of the imagination, have a starting pitcher that can go anywhere near toe-to-toe with Verlander or Cole. Greinke's been up and down with them since they got him, and Wade Miley's been up and down, and Miley's last start he came against the Mariners, and he gave up 5 runs in the first inning, didn't get an out. So the thought of having to face Verlander and Cole in 4 games of a championship series, those are the 4 games Houston needs to win. I don't think the Yankees can beat Cole or Verlander enough times to get past them.
Yeah, but I mean, back to the Yankees Astros race for number 1. As much as I dislike the Yankees, just as an organization, they've had too much success. But I would love to see the Astros and Twins meet up in that first round. I want to see Verlander, Cole, Greinke, and Miley go back-to-back in 4 straight games. I think throw Verlander there in Game 5 against that Twins lineup and just see what happens.
It'll be fun. And, the best part about that, you look at Justin Verlander's numbers from this season, and they will all stick out as to how unbelievably good he's been, except for one, and that's home runs. He's already blown away his career high in home runs. I think he's 2nd or 3rd in the league in home runs given up, which further highlights just how good he is, that he's given up so many home runs, and he's still this elite, immortal pitcher of our generation. But you put apparently a home run prone pitcher against the best home run hitting lineup in baseball, that's going to be a slugfest of a series. I agree with
Twins will
you.
have 4 hits and they'll all be solo shots.
I agree with you. You know what's funny? I think the Yankees played a game when Justin Verlander pitched against the Yankees in Yankee Stadium. I think he gave up only 4 or 5 hits in the game. He gave up 4 runs because he gave up 2 or 3 home runs. He gave up, a normal amount of hits. I think he had double-digit strikeouts, not a lot of walks, but the one thing he struggled with is giving up home runs.
Yeah, I mean that's really the big stat here in modern day baseballs. Can you keep the ball inside the ballpark? And that's one thing that the Twins have impressed me. I mean, we just talked about how their pitching rotation's not, what it could be. Nothing close to what we're seeing in Houston, but they're still top 3 in the AL in ERA, in average against, and in home runs allowed, or fewest home runs allowed.
Are they really? Wow.
Yeah, they've only allowed 176 homers. That's third best in the AL.
Baltimore's somewhere around double that, but that's a separate issue.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Baltimore's given up more than 100 more home runs than the Twins.
I think most of those are to Gleyber Torres. I mean, he's basically the only reason. Twins are basically the only reason he still has a job.
Who?
Gleyber Torres.
You
He
mean
has,
the Orioles?
I think, yeah, he has more than half of his home runs against the Orioles.
No, it's not even close to half. It's like
No,
it's like 11 or 12 out of his 35.
Let's see. Wait, let's the race to pull this up. Who's gonna win?
You're really gonna ask the Yankee fan about Gleyber Torres?
I'm fairly certain that he actually
There
does
is
have.
no way he's hit 17 or 18 home runs against Baltimore.
We'll see. I don't think you should feel too good about this.
What is it? Is it actually like 15 or 16?
Well,
Yeah,
while Ben's
it's
pulling this up.
Opponent. Yeah, here we go. He has 13 home runs against the Orioles. How many does he have total?
35.
Oh, crap.
Okay, so what have we learned here?
that Maltz knows the Yankees.
Listen, I'm not
Still,
gonna.
13
I'm not gonna,
home runs of 13 of his. What's the percentage on that?
That's about a third.
That's more than a third.
Yeah, it's like
What, 35?
something like that.
37% of his home runs come against the Orioles.
What do you expect, man? The Orioles serve up chocolate chip cookies like they're a bakery.
Oh, nice.
I like that.
That's good. Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, that's what the Red Sox did last night against the Yankees, but that's a separate issue. I'm just gonna go on a quick tangent here for 1 second because, as we know, the news broke right after the Red Sox game last night that Dave Dombrowski was being relieved of his duties as GM and president of the Red Sox. So I was at the game last night, and I was able to take a picture with him. So I have a picture with Dave Dombrowski at his
Final
last
moments.
game with the Red Sox, and I just think that makes me feel so good that, like, the Yankee fan, he took a picture with a Yankee fan. He didn't know it, but he took a picture with a Yankee fan, and then he lost his job. They must have known I was a Yankee fan.
Oh, yeah,
That
that's-
was it. You don't want any public relations with Yankee fans.
No, I mean, listen, magic touch.
I still can't decide whether or not it was classy of the Red Sox to send Dombrowski out there pregame for their staff appreciation night, let him wave, let everybody get a good look at him, and then sack him right after.
Yeah, I like that. Because, I mean, despite the fact that Dombrowski was not on good terms with a lot of the Red Sox people, and despite the fact that the team that he's put together is really disappointing this season, he did put together a World Series winning team. He did put together a team that won
I'm fairly
100.
certain he actually put together 2 World Series winning teams, right? Because
He
he's been with
also-
the organization for quite some time.
No, I mean Dombrowski's only been with the Red Sox since 2016.
Oh, really?
But he was responsible for the 1997 Marlins.
Oh,
And he
okay.
also
What am I thinking
got
of then?
together the entire Detroit Tigers core that choked away every chance they had. But he knows how to put good teams together, and he put together a 108 win team. So you know what? He does deserve his recognition for that. But listen, I mean, we could I could easily, I'm sure we could. I could spend an entire episode of this podcast talking about how disappointing the Red Sox have been, and we don't really need to get into it because we've known about the problems with the Red Sox since the season began. They didn't sign a closer. They went with a closer by committee,
Ryan
and
Brazier.
and with the exception of Brandon Workman, who's actually been very good, every other closer candidate that they've tried has been an abomination. Not to mention that Chris Sale was never able to get to plant his feet on this season. He was never able to hone in on what's made him so good for all the past years. And now then he got hurt and he's missing the rest of the season. David Price has gotten hurt and he hasn't been good. Eduardo Rodriguez has been the closest thing to good that they have. Rick Porcello's a dumpster fire. Nathan Eovaldi's making $15 million, laughing all the way to the bank with his 5.77 ERA. Andrew Kashner's got an ERA over 6. I mean, the Red Sox are just hot garbage who have 21 pitchers on their September roster, which just blows my mind. That has nothing to do with the fact that they're not doing well. I just think it's ridiculous. Like, last night at the game, they must have made 7 or 8 pitching changes in the last 4 innings. Just a testament to why September baseball is so
I love September
awful.
baseball. I love September.
Why does this not surprise me?
So, I will say one thing. It's a lot more fun for fans of non-contending teams because when you're a fan of a contending team, you just sort of sit there. I mean, the Phillies and Mets played a 4.5-hour game yesterday. I will say that did kind of suck. It was 9 innings long, 4.5 hours. But for not, fans of non-contending teams, you get to see your prospects come up, and it actually makes playing in September somewhat interesting. For a fan of a contending team like the Phillies or the Red Sox, or I'm not sure I consider the Red Sox contending, Yankees, Cardinals.
I was gonna say, are either the Phillies or the Red Sox contending? At this
No,
point?
not. I mean, the Phillies are contending. The Phillies they're not good, but they're contending. Red Sox are not contending. But for fans of the Phillies, it's like what. I mean, we need bullpen pieces, but it's like you just sort of sit there while Gabe Kapler trots back and forth to the mound in the dugout, must walk like 4 or 5 miles. But
Hey, listen, Terry Francona chewed 1,000 pieces of gum after every game because he was so nervous. The 1,000 pieces is an exaggeration, but he was always chewing on something. He still does this in the dugout because he is a nervous wreck during games.
Oh yeah.
Fun fact about Tito. So now I want to get back to what the cliffhanger I left y'all on a little while back when we're talking about the award races. Really, the two that I want to focus on are the National League MVP and the National League Cy Young, because in my opinion, they're the only ones that are close. I mean, listen, let's go through the American League real fast. Mike Trout's winning the MVP.
no question.
Done.
Yeah, Mike Trout.
You know,
Mike Trout?
unless Garrett Cole strikes out
Mike Trout.
50 batters in his last 3 starts, Justin Verlander's going to win the AL Cy Young, hands down.
Yeah.
There really haven't been any great rookies in the AL who have played a full season. Yordan Alvarez hasn't stopped hitting since he got called up in June. He'll finish somewhere around 90 games, and who knows? At the rate he's hitting, he could have somewhere around 90 RBIs in 90 games. I mean, he just
RBIs are a terrible stat.
I know you don't like them, but
They're a
that's-
terrible stat.
I know you don't like them, but I disagree with you.
They're
certainly doesn't
objectively a terrible stat.
I mean-
Objectively.
Doesn't matter if it's a terrible stat. 90 RBIs in 90 games is still incredible.
Oh yeah, no, it's certainly impressive. They're objectively a terrible stat though, and I know voters still look at them, but they are objectively a terrible
He
stat.
has 70 RBIs in 70 games, and there's I think 17 or 18 games left in the season. 90's a stretch, but you know what?
90's a stretch.
He's going to win Rookie of the Year because he hasn't stopped hitting since he got called up.
Yeah,
So
agreed.
those 3 are pretty much decided. And in the National League Rookie of the Year, it's Pete Alonso. We don't even need to talk about it. He National League rookie record and home runs.
Oh, yeah.
He's slugged his way from the minor leagues up to the majors, and now the Mets, I'm sure, are regretting that they kept him in the minor leagues until he was 24 years old. So
The only
Chase Utley disease.
problem is, I mean, maybe for Fernando Tatis.
he will get some votes. He could get some votes.
He could
and
make a big run in September, and Pete Alonso
he-
just falls
he's
off
hurt.
a cliff.
Yeah, he's injured.
Oh,
He's
He's been
out.
injured.
He's-
He got injured in like the beginning of August.
Yeah, the only guy
shows,
who could
shows how much I care about the Padres, I guess.
shows how much everybody cares about the Padres. I mean, they're still a year or 2 away.
Manny Machado said that Manny Machado said that they were going to win a World Series before the Dodgers.
You know what? He could be right. The Dodgers
No.
can't find
Right,
the
yeah.
Dodgers. Listen, the
The
Dodgers.
Padres are not going to win a World Series, at least not for another 4 or 5 years. And I
Sure
think
they
the
will. Sure they will. They've got probably they've got the best farm system in baseball, even with Tatis Jr. out of it. But Alonso's the hands down favorite. The only guy who could really give him a run for his money is Mike Soroka, the young pitcher on the Braves, but it's not happening. And that leaves the
Pete
other
Alonso.
two. That leaves the other 2 awards. That leaves the National League Cy Young and the National League MVP. Now here's the cliffhanger. What I was saying before about Bellinger and Yelich, those 2 guys are 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, and I think that there's a chance. It's low, but there's a chance that we could see co-MVPs of the National League. We've seen this one other time in 1979 when it was, I believe, I know the Hall of Famer Willie Stargell was one of them, but I don't remember who the other one was. But I know that in
I should know that.
I know that in 1979, Willie Stargell and somebody else exactly tied in voting points. It was Keith Hernandez of the Cardinals. Keith Hernandez and Willie Stargell had a dead tie in voting points and were co-MVPs of the National League. I'm pretty sure it's the only time in the history of baseball it's ever happened, and I really think it could happen again this year. Those 2 guys, I mean, listen, the numbers between all the different stat tracking websites, they vary so much. These 2 guys are such high impact players on their team that they're both indispensable. They're both good young left-handed hitting power outfielders who've got good averages, great OPSs, great speed. The only advantage Bellinger has over Yelich is outfield defense, but when it comes to MVP voting, that's kind of, not irrelevant. You can just throw it to the side as like, the cherry on top of the cake or on top of the sundae. I think it could happen.
I think the other big advantage that Bellinger
Possible.
has, though,
Plausible.
is that his team is, by record, the best team in the National League.
Oh yeah.
And team success shouldn't play into that, but if you are the best player on the best team, a lot of people still just give votes for that. And that's not taking anything away from Christian Yelich. I think that he has been, by far, the only reason that the Brewers are even in the playoff contention right now.
He's the only reason they're even relevant.
The only reason that they're above 500 is because Christian Yelich is on that baseball team. So if you're taking most valuable, I think Yelich kind of has to win it.
I think valuable is like it's like how Multi thinks that like Silver Sluggers shouldn't include walks. You know, it's all just the wording of the award. It really just means best player. It's most valuable player, just a way to put it.
Yeah, so it all depends on how people vote. But I think because of the Dodgers' success, I think it's got to go to Bellinger. I mean, you've got nearly identical stat lines, but if one team is 20 games ahead of the other, I think that's it.
Yeah, I mean, but yes, those two guys are probably the two biggest favorites among the other among the National League players. But I want to give some love to three other guys who I think are going to give Bellinger and Yelich a run for their money. And these are the three guys. The first is Freddie Freeman of the Atlanta Braves. I think he is a perennial MVP candidate, and he is just as much that this season. Second is Anthony Rendon on the Washington Nationals. I think he is the most underrated infielder in Major League Baseball, and if you look at his numbers this season, they will blow your mind. And the third is Ketel Marte on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Marte kind of plays everywhere, which doesn't really matter to this, but he is probably the most glaring example of a player whose career has been helped out by the juiced baseballs.
Oh, yeah.
I saw this incredible tweet from one of the great baseball writers, Bob Nightingale, who said that in Ketel Marte's first 1,399 Major League at-bats, 1,400 at-bats, that's about 2 and change seasons worth of games. He had 22 home runs. And in 539 at-bats this season, he has 32.
Yeah, he's
Incredible
He's
what
kind
Marte's
of good.
been able to do.
He's a switch hitter. He's leading the National League in hits. He's scoring a lot of runs. He's hitting homers. He's hitting doubles, triples, playing all over the place. His OPS is 989. He's hitting 330. I mean, I love him. He's 25 years old, and he's young. He's good, and he's carried the Diamondbacks. He's kind of stepped into the place where Paul Goldschmidt was on that team for so many years, where he's now the centerpiece of that offense. That may not last if they first admit to and then unjuice the balls next year. But you know what? The fact of the matter is that this year he's playing like an MVP winner.
Oh, yeah. And I don't know, just talking about teams that have gotten rid of their best hitter and then still been really good. The Nationals, Diamondbacks, I think those have been just two great stories this year. And that storyline behind Marte could be enough just to get him a couple votes.
Oh yeah. Listen, I don't think he's gonna.
He'll
I don't
finish
think
like fourth.
I don't think he's gonna
Something
win.
like that.
I don't think he's gonna win, but I would love to see it. And then one last thing, and then I think it's time to wrap up this.
I do have a final
phenomenal
thought.
first episode. Before you get to that final thought, I just want to give some recognition to how difficult the National League Cy Young Award race is going to be, because this is something that not a lot of people aren't talking about. Before he got hurt, this was Max Scherzer's award, hands down. But now you have to look at where things have gone since then. Hyunjin Ryu had an awful month of August where he gave up 14 runs in 2 starts. So he's not quite the favorite anymore, but he's still up there. You have Scherzer, you have Jacob deGrom, who's once again pitching phenomenally despite a not great record. You have Mike Soroka, Jack Flaherty, and probably the great Patrick Corbin as well, and Steven Strasburg. Those 3 guys in Washington are just ridiculous. And then the guy who I'm so happy to see having a comeback season like this, because I felt so bad for him, is Sonny Gray on the Reds. He's an all-star. You look at his numbers, it'll blow you away.
Yeah, he's pitched great. Like, just watching him, he hits his spot every single time.
Listen, he couldn't pitch in New York. That's just how it is, and he couldn't stay there. So the Yankees wanted to get rid of him so that he could save his career, and so far in Cincinnati it has. But I just wanted to give some recognition to that, because the other 4 awards, as we've said, are pretty cut and dry, and these really aren't. whether you want to look at the MVP race as being just between Yelich and Bellinger or throwing in the other guys I brought up or anybody else, and of course with the Cy Young race, it's even less clear. It's going to be fun to see how the voting ends up going down. So,
Oh, yeah, I mean, at this point, it's wide open. It's for the Cy Young. Do you go with the best pitcher and the best team? I mean, Young Junior Yu was unhittable pre All-Star break. You couldn't touch anything.
you couldn't dream of hitting him.
No.
I mean, as far out as far into the season as August 11th, his ERA was 1.45.
Yeah,
Since then, in the 5 starts since then, it's gone up to 2.45.
Exactly.
Ridiculous.
He gave in a stretch of 2 games. He played the Yankees, and then I don't recall who he played after.
Braves, Yankees, Diamondbacks, Rockies. 4
So,
runs, 7 runs, 7 runs, 3 runs.
Okay, listen, he's still having a great year. I don't want 4 starts is not going to take away from what he did for the first 3.5 months of the season. But he's not the favorite anymore. He was while his ERA was still in the
could be
low
the favorite.
ones.
I mean, he's still within, I'd say, the top 4 candidates.
Nah. We will take care. We can continue to discuss this further. But the moral of the story is that this race is so tight. There's so many guys who could win it and deserve to win it, and I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think if Jack Flaherty keeps the streak he's going, I mean, just kind of the opposite of the Hyunjin Ryu effect is that Jack Flaherty pre-All-Star break had an ERA above 4. He was like 4.4, something along those lines. Now in his last 7 starts, has gotten that down to a 2.99. Has dropped his ERA almost a 1.5 in
That's
like 11 games.
That is so unbelievably impressive. And yeah, I mean, listen, he's going to get votes. Especially if he keeps this up for his last 3 or 4 starts, he's going to get votes because he's a young ace with wicked good stuff, and he's playing on a first place team. He's going to get recognition.
All right.
Closing thoughts.
I was
Sir
caught in
Ben.
a yawn there for a second, but yeah, I had a few final thoughts on one particular topic. I watched the Phillies Mets game Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN the other night because of course it was the Phillies playing. I had to watch, and there are a few things just to start off that bother me. I mean, for one, it's Sunday baseball. Like I know you want to market it Sunday night. No one wants to watch baseball at 8 o'clock on a Sunday. Just play the damn game at 1. If you don't want to play it at 1, make it special. Play it at 4. That's stupid. Second off, the whole broadcast is terrible. Aside from the camera work, their camera work is fantastic. That's the one point I'll give them. Matt Vesgersian, Alex Rodriguez, and Jessica Mendoza in the booth are a laughing stock. I mean, there were just a few things that I had to write down because they were so absurd. Like Jessica Mendoza talking about, oh, wow, the crowd is really filled out tonight as opposed to yesterday. Meanwhile, the crowd that night was like 32,000. The crowd the previous day was 41,000. I mean, A-Rod goes on talking about like Marcus Stroman's height for like 4 innings. Like they don't talk about the game. They go on these tangents about things that don't matter. Like, oh yeah, Marcus Stroman has a tattoo on his wrist that says HDM. Did you know that means height doesn't matter? It's like, I don't care. There's one great quote that I saved somewhere. I'm gonna take a second to pull it up, but it's such a waste of Matt Vasgersian. He's such a lively commentator. You can hear how much he cares about every play. But when he's paired with Jessica Mendoza and Matt and Alex Rodriguez, it makes me want to take an ice pick to my ears. And I did find the Alex Rodriguez quote. It's okay. I want to give some context here. The Phillies, I want to say, had a runner on first, and they had their 8-hole hitter up or their 7-hole hitter up. And Alex Rodriguez says, I just love the bunt here. You always want even leads versus odd leads. What does that mean? What does that mean? What's the difference between an even? What he's trying to say
Winning
is that,
by an even or an odd number amount of runs.
yeah, well, I know that's what he's. But like, what does that mean? How could that possibly make any sense? Like, yes, I would much prefer a 2-run lead to a 3-run lead. Where is the logic? I mean, Alex Rodriguez, without the steroids, is a Hall of Famer. He played baseball for 19 years, 18 years, 21 years. What is he thinking? Like, what's going on in his skull? I don't know. It pisses me off that I have to listen to them on major games, especially that we're gonna have to listen to them for a wild card game in the playoffs. God damn, I hate that broadcast.
Enjoy. Yeah, I think I'm sorry you feel that way because I really like the trio of Vasgersian, A-Rod, and Mendoza.
Really?
I think they're a great broadcasting crew. I mean, listen, A-Rod may not always say stuff that makes sense, but he knows his baseball. He really does. And you said it that Vasgersian's a very lively, entertaining commentator, which is so true. But honestly, I'm surprised that you're talking about that game and you're not talking about how Rajai Davis made Joe West fall down.
Oh yeah, and Joe West stands on him, just unable to get up. The camera zooms in on his face at one point, and he looks like he's just about to lay an egg.
Well, listen, this is my last comment, but you have to respect Joe West. I mean, he is 66 years old. He's been an umpire for more than
a terrible umpire, I might add.
That's a matter of opinion.
No,
he hasn't
objectively.
He hasn't always been as bad as he.
Not great.
His strike zone isn't awful, but he tries to show up the only reason he's still an umpire is because he loves being an umpire, and not for the right reason.
Listen, it's like being a Supreme Court justice. As long as you don't do something egregiously wrong, you have
But
tenure.
he does do stuff that's egregiously wrong.
And anyway,
Oh no.
We'll get to this on the next show.
All I'm trying to say is that Joe West is 66. He's been an umpire for more than double our lifetimes.
Triple our lifetimes.
No, he's been an umpire for 43.
Oh, umpire. Sorry, he's been a lot. What am I? Yeah,
He's been an umpire. He's been an umpire for 43 years. When you're that old, and he's not a
Yes, I am 12.
He's not a slender fellow. When somebody slides right into you, you're gonna fall down. I felt bad for him because two guys had to come up and help get him up, but Joe made it through, and hopefully he umpires next year so that he can set the record for the most games all time ever umpired. So I think that just about
Ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. I think that just about does it. We thank you so much for listening. This was our first episode, hopefully of many, for season 2 of Fair or Foul. For Ben and Jacob, my name is Daniel, and we will see you next time on episode 2. See you then.